Hello, everybody. Anna Sabramowitz here, and in today's podcast, I want to talk to you about my mission and my vision and how I'm going to solve that problem that I have come up with that I want to solve. So, if you have not visited here before, and this is your first episode ever, welcome. Also, cool. Good on you. Now, obviously, you're interested in scenarios if you picked this podcast, and that's exactly what I want to talk about, and I talk about it almost every single episode. There are some episodes where I bring in guests that I think are going to add cool perspective and interesting ideas to this process, because to be honest, the scenario design process is not, you can definitely learn the mechanics behind it. But you have to also, there's so much of the head game that you have to be able to understand. And what I mean by head game is things like how to work with people, because you really need to, how to persuade them, how to persuade people to work with you, how to persuade people to tell you their insider info. There was this really cool phrase called, how do you get deep smarts out of subject matter experts? You got to know how to do that. And then the other thing is, you're actually in the business of selling ideas. You're in the business of, can I say propaganda? Is that okay? Basically what you're trying to do is persuade people to do things, and you're trying to do that on behalf of somebody else. So how do you do that, right? Storytelling's super powerful because it's very persuasive. But like I said, you can't just have the mechanic of something. There's a lot of people I talk to almost every single day. They have the mechanics down. They're amazing with software. They're amazing with the frameworks. They do amazing needs analysis. But the minute you put them in front of other people, they either come in with some bias and they mess that up, and they really do, or they're not even confident in selling their own ideas. So that stuff it's like that book you're supposed to write but never do. But this is more important because the book, let's say you're I have this book inside of me, but I don't have the guts to write it or send it to the publisher. That's fine. That's for you, really. I mean, most times. But this stuff that we're creating, this isn't for you. I mean, yeah, you get to, show it off and say that it's yours. But really, it's for other people. Your goal is to improve other people's lives. And that's one of the things I really want to work on with people, is to make sure that they don't just get the strategy and the tactics, which help because it builds your confidence, but then how do you take that confidence to the next level so that you're able to interact with people the right way? You're able to pull stories out of them and talk to you when other people are not able to get that info. Really, that's kind of the upper edge, is can you do that? So let me tell you a little bit about, I don't think I've ever shared this before, but I have this vision on my desk. It sits here about, what I and all the things that I do stand for. And so the problem that I see out there in the world is that training is boring, and also that it's aimed at low performers. So basically, a lot of the training that's out there, to give you some context, is for entry-level knowledge. And there is no accountability for the fact that my time is being wasted if I'm above that level. There's no context around a lot of the training that's being done out there for adults. I'm talking about adults, not all the out-of-context stuff you learn in university. There's a lot of careless waste of time. We have infinite amount of time or something like that, which is not true, right? So that, to me, is a huge problem. That if somebody really wants to upskill, or if somebody is coming into a job that they already have 4, 5, 6 years of experience, they're once again starting at, not necessarily with the job, but with the training itself. They're just placed where everybody else starts, and it bothers me because you're not leveraging. You can get people upskilled and into the workforce and performing way faster if you just thought about how you could speed up that experience for them so that they could actually jump to the level where they're ready and actually take them to the next level. And the other thing that really fits into that is, and I've talked about this before, I think, but it's called Don't Send Ducks to Eagle School, is that not everybody belongs at the next level. But the problem is that because most people cater to like the lower rungs of performance, the people who need just like that little tweak and a couple of these learning experiences that just catapult them to like the 80 or the 20 percentile that delivers the most value, that's missing. And we're always milling about where, you know, everybody else is always milling about, instead of saying, okay, we have like an elite performer here. What can we do to take him to the next level so that he doesn't leave, so that he continues feeling challenged? You know, and that might not be training, but that might be systems and supports and even just provocative questions that keep that person engaged. And I feel that's 100% missing. There's a lot of people doing the bottom stuff, and there's not enough people saying, who's our top percentile? How can we move them to the next level? And what's the training and supports that they need in place to recognize that experience and take them, bam, you know, engage them. So my mission is that I want to empower every person to achieve more through meaningful learning experiences. The people who want more and even just be a master at their job, but they simply don't have the opportunities or the insight to know where to go next. So for me, scenarios are like that fit, because what happens is, I think scenarios, regardless of whether they cause any kind of behavior change, sometimes the behavior change that they can cause is to help somebody realize that there's an opportunity that they haven't seen before. And that might be in itself the best kind of learning that they've done. Probably sometimes when you get that aha, it's like, it's so powerful. It's worth everything. So my vision is, you know, obviously I want to empower people, and I want to design these programs that are for the next level, that are for people who are hungry for learning, but also performance, and are ready to make the investment, right? The challenge is that I'm just one human being. So I thought about that, and I was like, how can I really affect change as a single person? So here's what my vision is. Focus on the makers and upskill and inspire them to be the best scenario designers. So I know that I can't hit all areas of learning and development. I know that I can't influence, you know, like I have, excuse me, I have broad knowledge in a lot of things, but there are areas where I just really started digging deep and specializing, right? Which for me is scenario design, and also interactions with subject matter expert to pull the stuff out of them in the right way. But like I said, I can't hit all of those areas. So if I help people, other instructional designers, other e-learning developers, really focus in on what it takes to design, let's say, great scenarios, and wrap that up with skill sets and mindsets and tools that help them do that really well, that will bring up all the other areas in their professional and hopefully personal life as well. So what happens is, if you really refine yourself in one area, that quality will spread, right? It's kind of like when you have, they say that one habit is actually, there's a compound effect to one habit. So if you start one good habit, then it inspires you to actually, like let's say you work out in the morning, then you might not eat a really gross burger in the afternoon because you're like, you know, I am having such an awesome day. And then you might go to bed early because you're like, I'm having such an awesome day. Look, I'm on a roll. So what happens is, you know, one good habit reinforces others. And I'm thinking, maybe I can do that with scenarios. In fact, I'm thinking that's what the heck I am going to do with scenarios. So I'm going to focus on not, you know, trying to go into an organization and do one piece at a time. My goal now is to upskill the makers, the people who have the influence, because that's how you scale. That's how you actually affect change, right? Is by helping others become also amazing at this craft. So that's my vision. Now, how am I working on this vision? So last year, yes, I think it's last year, I launched a a scenario design course. And during that course, we basically went through the framework that I use to design e-learning. And it is something I discovered when I designed Broken Coworker. Now, I've worked with companies like, Sony, Michelin, and like just all over the place, multinationals, and all of them in Adidas, and all of them love scenarios. Like the scenario formula is excellent. The framework I use is excellent. Now, I find one of the things that people struggle with, either one, they overwhelm themselves with the design aspects and forget that framework, and therefore end up creating things that potentially look good but really don't deliver the value that's necessary. And adults are different than children. They see through that stuff. And after a couple of interactions, if they're just not thought through well and they don't have context, people will see through that and be it just not take you as seriously, or it just won't have the same impact, right? So but the thing with that course is that when I launched it, I said, okay, as you move through this through these lessons and these steps on how to design your own scenario, there's a point in here when you're ready, I want you to talk to me. So I offered a session where we actually deconstructed, where they were at and where they were struggling. And one of the things I noticed is that, sometimes we'd be in about a couple of weeks in, and people would still be struggling with like the conversations with stakeholders, or people would still be struggling with getting the SME to tell them the right info. And I thought, okay. So then I thought about, what am I doing here to really catch these little snags when they happen? And I thought it actually would be best if instead of leaving people to their own devices and the pressures of work and the distractions of work and all those other things and other projects, I thought, hey, why don't we just go week by week? We go through the process. I check in with them every single week. We do Q&A. We do some small lessons, deconstructions, see where they're at so that everybody's keeping up with each other and also doesn't get distracted by all the other whirlwind of work that's out there. So the March cohort is going to be a week by week, 6-week program where I walk you through the framework that I use. That's amazing, simple, but also super powerful. And then once that is done, you're working with me every week and your peers to get that launched. Because one of the things that people struggle with is not only knowing where to start with these things, but because they look at like all these other projects that are so huge out there and so complicated, they overwhelm themselves with that process and with that final outcome without actually saying, hey, here's something I can produce that's agile, quick, relevant. And now let's say I'm going back to my boss to say, we should do more scenarios. I now have a really solid working prototype that they can work through, enjoy, and actually get some buy-in into. It will build your confidence because now you have a proven system. It will build your confidence because you've practiced talking to subject matter experts. You've gotten feedback, practiced talking to stakeholders. You've gotten feedback, practiced giving feedback to other people, practiced deconstructing others so that you can go back to your own work. So all of this builds your confidence. And like I said, scenarios are not just about the system itself. The system is super helpful because there's also still a lot of people who have a ton of confidence out there, but they have no idea where to start, and it just frustrates them because they waste so much time up front trying to make something work that isn't in the end going to provide the kind of value or the kind of product that they actually would feel proud of. So it's like a combo of two. So I'm hoping to get a combo of these kinds of people in there in the cohort so that what we're working on is really going to deliver. And it's funny because it is going to be intense. It's going to be a lot of work, but a lot of times you'll actually be surprised how much you can get done if somebody's there being your accountability partner and saying, hey, I'm here to help you. But here's a little bit of the upfront work that you actually have to do to get you ready to engage, and let's get this going. So I think that it'll be a lot of fun, but also a lot of work, but also it'll be super fruitful, because one of the things, every single time I get to share my process with other people, they come up with some amazing questions because they're new, and it just makes me explain it even better. So it's a win-win. Anyways, if that's something you're interested in and learn more about, then I will put a link to basically a video that walks you through the basically the application process. And if it's something you want to talk about, you should book a session with me anyways, because usually what I do is on the sessions that I have with people, which are free, they're strategy sessions, I just really talk about where you're struggling and what are some tips or tools that you should be able to implement, which areas are most important for you to work on. And either way, that session ends up being something that is valuable for everybody all around, because I learn more about what you're actually struggling with, so I can design more videos and resources that help you. But also then at that point you get some clarity from somebody who's been there about what is needed to actually deliver awesome scenarios, and where your hang-ups are. Because a lot of people think, oh, it's, if only this me was better. And I'm like, maybe if your questions were better. Or I did all this planning and I was still like, my project ran 2 months late, and I'm like, maybe it's the planning process. Maybe you're looking at a framework that's not helping you. Maybe looking at some older, there's a lot of stuff floating out there about how to design scenarios. This is a new means. This is a new way of doing things in some cases, especially online. So there's definitely ways to streamline that process and actually make it a little bit more fun for you, because there's got to be fun in there, right? Anyways, so that's what I wanted to share with you today, and I hope you're enjoying yourself. You're having a good week, and if you have any questions, then post them. If you like this podcast and you think it's cool, then share it. That's awesome, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you next time. Take care. Bye.